Rebirth. I kept my correct flight terminal and watched my roommate miss the boarding call alone. The first thing I heard after coming back to life was not thunder, not screaming, not even the ugly crack of the airport shuttle crashing through the guardrail the way it had in my last life. It was the cheerful ding of my phone on the hostel desk, followed by my roommate's sugary voice from the bed across from mine saying, "Mira, hurry up. If you don't move faster, we're both going to miss the flight." I opened my eyes to the same cheap ceiling fan wobbling above us, the same half-open suitcase beside my bed, the same pale morning light sliding through the curtains, and for 3 frozen seconds, I could not breathe. My fingers clawed into the blanket. My throat tasted like smoke that was not there yet. In my last life, I had handed over my printed boarding pass because I trusted her when she said the airline changed our terminal. In my last life, I followed her to Terminal 1 while my Real gate waited in Terminal 3. In my last life, she boarded alone with my research files, my scholarship confirmation, my passport wallet, and the professor's recommendation letter she had stolen from my bag while I panicked at the transfer desk. In my last life, I ran back too late, missed the call, lost my exchange placement, lost the presentation slot, lost the funding, and then, on the airport road after begging a taxi driver to chase the next bus, I died with my face against broken glass while her social media post appeared on my cracked phone. Some people are just not meant to fly higher. So when I saw her sitting there again, curling her lashes like nothing had happened yet, I did not scream. I did not cry. I simply turned my phone over, looked at the airline notification glowing on the screen, and smiled so calmly that she stopped applying mascara. Her name was Liana Vale, and if betrayal had a scent, hers would have smelled like vanilla body spray and expensive shampoo she pretended was a gift from her aunt. We had been roommates for 6 months in an overseas language program attached to a medical sciences exchange track, and everyone thought she was harmless because she laughed softly, let hair clips, remembered birthdays, and cried whenever a teacher corrected her grammar. That was how she survived. She made people feel cruel for doubting her. She made honesty look harsh and suspicion look like jealousy. I used to defend her when the others whispered that her assignments sounded too similar to mine. I used to tell myself she only borrowed phrases because English was hard for her. I used to believe she only packed my highlighters by accident, only opened my laptop because she thought it was hers, only knew about my scholarship interview because I must have mentioned it half asleep. In my first life, I had made excuses for every tiny theft until she committed one so large it tore my future out by the root. This morning, the morning I should have been dead, she sat cross-legged on her bed in a cream cardigan, phone propped against a water bottle, filming a casual travel with me clip for her followers. Her suitcase was already locked. Mine was still open because she had insisted the night before that we should pack together so we would not forget anything. That memory struck me like a match. My documents. I turned slowly toward my bag while keeping my breathing even. In my last life, my passport wallet had been missing at the check-in counter, and Liana had found it by miracle inside her tote after I nearly collapsed. I had thanked her. This time, I walked to my suitcase, lifted the folded sweater from the top, and slid my hand under the lining pocket. My passport wallet was there, but the zipper was half open. I did not confront her. That was the first lesson death taught me. People like Liana wanted confrontation early because drama gave them fog to hide in. A thief loved noise. A liar loved confusion. A parasite loved a generous victim who announced every wound before the bleeding could prove anything. So I only took the passport wallet, counted every document inside, and slipped it beneath the waistband of my jeans under my oversized hoodie. Passport. Visa copy. Boarding pass. Scholarship acceptance. Professor Han's sealed recommendation letter. USB drive containing my final research presentation. Emergency cash. All there, except one thing, the spare printed itinerary I had tucked behind the visa copy. I looked across the room. Liana was watching me through her phone screen, pretending to check her angle. "Did you find everything?" she asked sweetly. "You look pale." In my last life, I had laughed and told her I was nervous. I had opened my soul to her like a door. This time, I shut the passport wallet against my body and said, "Just tired." Her expression flickered. One little glitch. Barely a blink. But I saw it, and something inside me went cold and bright. She had already taken the itinerary. She already knew my terminal. She was waiting to redirect me again. "Oh," she said, stretching the word as she put her mascara away. "By the way, I checked the airport app. Our flight moved to Terminal 1.
Weird, right?
The printed ticket still says Terminal 3, but airport apps update faster." There it was. The sentence that had killed me. The room seemed to tilt, not because I believed her, but because my body remembered believing her. My heartbeat shot up so quickly I had to turn away and pretend to zip my suitcase. In my last life, I had argued for 10 seconds, then surrendered because Liana sounded so certain. She showed me a screenshot with my flight number beside Terminal 1. Later, after everything collapsed, I realized the screenshot was from another airline's codeshare route on a different date, cropped just enough to fool me. She had counted on my panic, and I gave it to her freely. This time, I opened the airline's official app on my phone with my back angled, so she could not see. Flight ZX419. Departure, 10:45. Terminal 3.
Gate C27.
Boarding, 10:05. No change. I refreshed it once.
Twice. Same.
I opened the airport website.
Same.
I checked my email.
Same.
Even checked the SMS from the airline.
Same.
Terminal 3.
Gate C27.
My future was not moving. Only Liana wanted me to move away from it. Terminal 1? I said, making my voice soft and uncertain. Her shoulders relaxed because weakness was a sound she recognized.
Yes.
I know it's annoying, but we have to be smart. You can't always trust printed passes. She crossed the room and reached toward my boarding pass like she had a right to touch it. "Let me see yours so I can check if they updated your seat too." My hand landed on the paper before hers did. Not roughly. Not dramatically. Just firmly enough that her fingers stopped in the air. "It's fine," I said. "I'll keep it." She laughed, and there was a needle underneath it. "Mira, don't be weird. We're traveling together." I looked up at her, and for one sharp moment, I remembered the last thing I saw before the crash, my own blood reflected in my phone screen while her post mocked me. "Are we?" I asked. She blinked and the room changed. Not visibly. The suitcase remained open. The curtain still moved. Her phone still recorded silently from the desk. But the air between us snapped tight, and Liana, who had spent months wearing helplessness like perfume, suddenly looked older. "What's that supposed to mean?" she asked. "Nothing," I said, folding my boarding pass and sliding it into the inside pocket of my hoodie. "I just mean we both have our own passports, our own tickets, our own schedules. We can meet at the gate." Her mouth curved, but her eyes did not. "Don't be childish. The airport is huge. You get anxious in crowds." That was true in my last life, because she had trained me to be anxious. She hid my things, changed times, whispered doubts, then rescued me just enough that I mistook dependence for friendship. "I'll manage," I said. I lifted my suitcase from the floor before she could pretend to help. She moved quickly, blocking the doorway with her small body.
"Wait.
We should leave together. I already booked a ride." Another memory struck. The ride she booked last time had dropped us at Terminal 1. I had thought it was a driver mistake. She had argued with him performatively, then dragged me inside, saying we were already late.
Cancel it, I said.
"I'm taking the airport train." "The train?" She stared as if I had suggested walking across the runway. "With luggage? At this hour? Why are you acting like this?" "Because you killed me," I thought. "Because your lies smelled like burning rubber and gasoline. Because this time, I want to hear the boarding call with my own ears." But I only smiled. Because I like trains. She tried 3 more times before we left the hostel. First, she claimed the train line was delayed. I checked the live schedule in front of her and showed no reaction when she flushed. Second, she said she had extra luggage allowance and could put my carry-on under her booking to save me trouble. I refused, and she stopped smiling for half a second. Third, while I filled my water bottle in the kitchen, She accidentally knocked my phone from the counter, and if I had not seen her reflection in the microwave door, it would have landed screen first on the tile. I caught it by the charging cable. She gasped, hand to chest, eyes wide with injured innocence. "Oh my gosh, I'm so clumsy today." "You always are when I need something," I said. The words escaped before I could soften them. Her face went blank. Around us, 2 other girls from the hostel looked up from their cereal. Liana's lips parted, already preparing tears, but I looked away first, denying her an audience. That was my second lesson. Never give a performer the stage she is begging for. I rinsed my bottle, capped it, and walked out with my suitcase. She followed 10 steps behind me, her wheels rattling angrily over the hostel's front steps. Outside, the morning air was wet and silver. Commuters hurried past with coffees, delivery vans coughed at the curb, and the city was painfully alive. I paused beneath the hostel awning, stunned by the simple fact that I could feel cold air on my face. In my last life, this morning had ended under a white sheet. In this one, I was standing upright with my boarding pass pressed against my ribs like a second heartbeat. "Mira," Liana called behind me, voice tight now. "You're going the wrong way. The ride is here." A black sedan waited by the curb, driver leaning out, phone in hand. I looked at the license plate. Same one. Same driver. Same trap. "No," I said. "That ride is yours." For the first time since I had woken up, panic flashed openly across her face. It was small, quick, and ugly, but it was real. "Are you serious? I booked it for us. Then enjoy the space." I turned toward the station entrance, and she hurried after me, suitcase bouncing behind her. "Fine," she snapped, dropping the sweetness because there were no cameras close enough now. "If you want to be difficult, I'll take the train too. Do whatever you want." "You're being paranoid." "Maybe. You think I'm trying to do something to you?" The question was meant to sound wounded, but it came out too sharp, like she had cut herself on it. I stopped at the top of the subway stairs and looked back. She was breathing fast. Her hair, which she had curled carefully, was already frizzing in the damp air. I remembered another Liana, polished and radiant at the scholarship reception, standing in front of my stolen slides, accepting praise for research she had barely understood. I remembered trying to email Professor Hahn from the hospital before my lungs filled, fingers slipping on the cracked screen, desperate for someone to know the truth. I died before the email sent. That unsent message had followed me back like a ghost. "No," I said at last. "I don't think you're trying to do something." Her shoulders lowered. Then I added, "I think you already did." She stared at me, and in her eyes I saw calculations spinning like a lock. She did not know how much I knew. That uncertainty was my first weapon. The airport train was crowded, which helped me. Crowds used to frighten me, but that morning they became walls Liana could not control. I stood near the doors with my suitcase between my knees and one hand inside my hoodie pocket, fingers resting on my boarding pass and passport wallet. Liana stood across from me, pretending to scroll. Every few minutes, her eyes jumped to my pocket. She was desperate to see whether I would follow her terminal eye, but she could not ask again, without sounding suspicious. I almost laughed. In my last life, I had been the one begging for confirmation, asking, "Are you sure? Are you sure?" while she patted my arm and told me to calm down. Now she was the one trapped inside uncertainty. At Central Station, 2 businessmen squeezed between us, and I used the moment to open my phone and message Professor Hahn. "Good morning, Professor. I'm on the way to the airport for ZX419, Terminal 3, Gate C27. I'll send confirmation once boarded. Also, please note I will present my own research file for my own USB today." My thumb hovered before sending the last sentence. Too obvious? Too early? Then I thought of the sealed recommendation letter in my wallet, the missing spare itinerary, and the way Liana's fingers had reached for my boarding pass. I pressed send. Seconds later, the professor replied with a thumbs up and a line that made my chest loosen. "Good. I will be at the arrival hall with the exchange committee. Travel safely." In my last life, he had waited, then heard Liana's explanation that I panicked and disappeared. This time, I had anchored my location in writing before she could rewrite it. Liana saw my expression change. "Who are you texting?" she asked. "My mother." It was the first lie I told her, and it tasted cleaner than all the truths I had wasted before. Her eyes narrowed. "You didn't tell her we changed terminals, did you?" "Why would my mother care?" "Because she worries about you." The businessman between us coughed, maybe to hide a laugh. Liana's cheeks pinked. She looked down at her phone, thumbs flying. I wondered who she was messaging. In my first life, after I missed the flight, 3 students from our program had posted that they heard I was unstable and had accused Liana of sabotage without proof. At the time, I thought gossip moved quickly. Now I understood she had prepared the rumor before the event. I angled my phone just enough to catch the reflection in the train window. Her chat name at the top, Kara Airport. Kara was another student in our program, the kind who did not start fires, but happily warmed her hands over them. Liana typed, "She's acting strange. Might make a scene. If she says anything later, remember, she was confused this morning." I felt a strange calm spread through me. Proof was not always a document. Sometimes it was a pattern repeating before your eyes. I opened my camera discreetly, pretended to check my hair, and captured the reflection of her screen. Blurry, but readable. Not enough for court. Enough for Professor Han. Enough for me. At the airport station, the signs split immediately. Terminal 1 left, Terminal 2 straight, Terminal 3 right. In my last life, Liana had grabbed my wrist and pulled me left while I hesitated. This time, I stopped beneath the sign and waited. She slowed too, face brightening as if she expected me to fold under habit. "Come on," she said, nodding left. "The shuttle to Terminal 1 is this way." I looked up at the massive blue board hanging over us. Terminal 3 was lit in white letters beside a right arrow. My airline logo appeared underneath. "My terminal is right," I said. She laughed too loudly. "Mira, we talked about this." "You talked. Don't embarrass yourself." "I'm not embarrassed. You're going to miss the flight. Not from Terminal 3. Her face hardened. People flowed around us with suitcases, announcements echoing overhead in 3 languages. For one wild second, she stepped close enough that I thought she might snatch my bag. Instead, she lowered her voice. "Listen to me. If you go to Terminal 3 and the flight is at Terminal 1, don't cry to me later. I won't fix it." There was again the old hook, "I won't fix it." The promise of rescue, withheld like a leash. I leaned closer, close enough to see the tiny crack in her lip gloss. "Good," I said. "Don't." Then I turned right. I expected her to follow. Instead, she stood frozen under the sign, phone clutched in one hand, suitcase handle in the other. Her plan required me to go left. If she followed me right, she would have to admit she knew Terminal 3 was correct. If she went left alone, she risked missing the flight herself unless she had a separate trick ready. For a few seconds, I watched the choice tear across her face. Then she lifted her chin and called after me. "Fine. I'll go check Terminal 1. When you realize I'm right, message me." It was a beautiful sentence because it sounded confident and trapped her at the same time. "Okay," I called back. "Send me a picture from the gate." She flinched. I kept walking. My legs shook all the way to the Terminal 3 escalator, but I did not look back again. That was the hardest part. Not screaming. Not chasing. Not demanding justice too early. I had to let the lie carry its owner. Terminal 3 smelled like coffee, perfume, and disinfectant, the ordinary airport scent of beginnings. I wanted to cry when the departure board showed ZX419 exactly where it should be. Gate C27 on time. The letters looked holy. I took a picture with the timestamp visible and sent it to Professor Han. Then I sent one to our program group chat with a casual message. "At Terminal 3 now. Gate C27 is open for ZX419. I did not mention Liana. I did not accuse her. I simply placed the truth in public before she could bury it. The responses came quickly. "Thanks. See you there." I thought it was T3? "Yep, T3. A minute later, Kara replied, Liana said there was a change to T1? I stared at the message. Pull steady. There it was. Her rumor had entered the room, and now everyone could see its shoes. I typed, official airline app and airport board both say T3. Maybe she saw a different flight.
Kind.
Neutral. Devastating. Nothing made a liar sweat more than politeness backed by evidence. Then I walked to security. Security was where my last life truly unraveled. After Liana dragged me to Terminal 1 and my passport wallet disappeared, I had emptied my bags onto a metal table while passengers stared. She kept saying, "Mira, breathe, breathe," while her hand rested on the tote where my wallet actually was. She returned it only when I was too shaken to think, then insisted we had to run. That panic made me miss every obvious sign. This time, I moved slowly on purpose. Laptop out. Liquids bag out. Shoes through.
Passport in hand.
Boarding pass ready. My carry-on never left my sight. A woman behind me sighed impatiently, and I almost apologized out of old reflex, then stopped. I had died once because I lived apologizing for taking up space. Let her sigh. The tray rolled through the scanner. My bag emerged. My documents remained mine. At the far end of security, my phone buzzed. "Liana, where are you?" I stared at the message for a long moment. There were so many answers I wanted to send.
Alive.
Ahead of you. Out of your reach. Instead, I wrote, Terminal 3. She replied instantly, "You need to come Terminal 1 now. Staff here said boarding is here." I looked at the airport board 10 meters away.
Gate C 27.
Boarding in 38 minutes. I typed, send photo. The typing bubbles appeared, vanished, appeared again. Then, no time. Just come. I laughed for the first time that morning, a quiet little sound that startled me. Death had not made her smarter. It had only made me less obedient. I bought a coffee I barely wanted just so my hands would have something warm to hold, and I sat where I could see the entrance to Concourse C. Students from our program began arriving in 2s and 3s, dragging suitcases, waving when they spotted me. Some looked confused. Some looked amused. All of them looked at the departure board, then at their phones, then back at me. "Mira," June said, dropping into the chair opposite me. "Why is Liana in Terminal 1? June was one of those people who never whispered, which made him dangerous in the best way. "She said she wanted to check something," I said. "She told Kara you were having some kind of anxiety episode." I took a sip of coffee, hot enough to burn my tongue, and force my face still. "Did she?"
Yeah.
He leaned closer, lowering his voice badly. "But you look very not episode." "Thank you." More students gathered. Kara arrived last, cheeks flushed from rushing, eyes darting between me and her phone. She had spent months orbiting Liana, feeding on secrets and compliments, but she was not loyal under pressure. No one like Kara ever was. "Liana says we should wait," she said. "She thinks there's a gate confusion." June pointed at the board. "The board is not confused." Kara bit her lip. "Maybe the app?" I held up my phone with the airline page open. The app is also not confused. Silence fell for one perfect second. Then, from the speakers above us, a clear voice announced, "Passengers traveling on Zenith Air Flight ZX419 to Vienna, please proceed to Gate C27 in Terminal 3. Boarding will commence shortly."
Yun looks a car.
Kara looked at the floor. I looked at my coffee and smiled. That announcement was the first boarding call Liana missed, but not the last. She began calling me immediately. I let the first call ring out. Then the second. Then the third. In my last life, she ignored my calls while I ran between terminals. This time, I watched her name flash on my screen like a trapped moth and felt nothing but a clean, cold satisfaction. Kara's phone started buzzing too. She answered, listened, paled, and whispered, but the announcement just said Terminal 3. Liana's voice was loud enough that several of us heard it crackle through the speaker. "They're wrong. I'm talking to staff. Mira is trying to make me look stupid." June's eyebrows shot up. "The airport is wrong," he mouthed. Kara turned away, but the damage was already done. People who had believed Liana's softness now heard the steel under it. I stood, gathered my bag, and said, "I'm going to the gate." Kara grabbed my sleeve. Should we wait for her? It was such a small question, but it carried the weight of my old life. Should we wait for the girl who never waited for anyone unless she could use the delay? Should I slow down because her lie had outrun her? Should I place my future on the floor again so she could step over it? I gently removed Kara's fingers from my sleeve. "Boarding has a closing time," I said. "She knows where we are." Gate C27 was already filling when we arrived. The wide windows showed our plane parked outside, white body gleaming under the morning sun, jet bridge attached like an arm extended toward escape. I stood near the seating area and watched every person who approached the gate, half expecting Liana to appear breathless and furious, ready for a new performance. She did not. Instead, my phone buzzed with messages that grew more frantic and less polished by the minute. Mira answer. "Why did you tell Group T3? You made everyone leave me. The shuttle is delayed. Tell staff I am coming. Mira, I have your spare itinerary by mistake." That last one stopped me. I read it twice. There it was, the stolen paper, confessed in panic because she needed a reason to connect herself to my travel details. I screenshotted it instantly. Then I typed, "Why do you have my itinerary?" She did not answer for almost a full minute. Then, it was on floor. Another screenshot. The floor in my suitcase? I sent. No reply. The gate agent announced pre-boarding. My hands trembled, but not from fear. This was what justice felt like before it became visible, a series of tiny doors locking behind the person who built the maze. Professor Han called as the first priority passengers lined up. I stepped aside by the window and answered. His voice was calm, precise, the way it always was in seminars. "Mira, I received your message. Is everything all right?" I almost said yes. Old Mira would have said yes even while drowning because she hated causing trouble. New Mira watched the baggage carts move below and told the truth carefully. "I'm at the correct gate." My roommate told several people the flight changed to Terminal 1, but the official information says Terminal 3. She is currently at Terminal 1 and asking me to tell staff she is coming. She also just admitted she has my spare itinerary. The silence on the line sharpened. "Did you give it to her?" "No." "Do you have your passport and presentation materials?" "Yes." "Do not leave the gate," he said immediately. "Do not hand anyone your documents. Board when called. Send me screenshots after you are seated." My throat tightened. In my first life, I had died trying to convince people after everything had already been stolen. This time, someone believed me before the theft could finish. "Professor," I said, and my voice almost broke. "If she says I was confused." "You are not the one at the wrong terminal," he said. It was the simplest sentence in the world. It nearly made me cry. When boarding started, Liana finally reached the stage of panic where masks become too heavy to hold. She sent a voice message. I should not have played it. I know that now. But at that moment, with my passport in my hand and my boarding group about to be called, I wanted to hear the sound of her lie collapsing. Her voice burst through my earbud, breathless and furious. "Mira, stop this right now. You know I can't miss this flight. You know I need that presentation slot. If you board without me, everyone will think I lied. Just tell them you got confused too. Say we both saw Terminal 1. I can still fix it if you don't make this about yourself." I replayed the phrase in my head. I need that presentation slot.
Not we.
Not the program. Not our future.
Mine.
Always mine. She had planned to take my place again. Maybe she still had a copy of my slides. Maybe she thought if I missed the flight, she could present first, blur the authorship, smile through questions, and leave me with nothing but accusations. I saved the voice message, then forwarded it to Professor Han with one line. She says she needs the presentation slot. His reply came before my boarding group was called. Received. Board now. The gate agent scanned my pass. The machine beeped green. Green, not red. Open, not closed. Yes, not too late. I stepped onto the jet bridge, and the tunnel seemed longer than it should have, as if my past life was walking beside me, matching my pace. Halfway down, I stopped and pressed one palm against the cool wall. In my last memory of the airport, I was running the opposite direction, lungs tearing, hearing the final call echo behind glass doors I could not reach. I remembered my suitcase while breaking. I remembered begging the transfer desk. I remembered Liana's message saying, "Maybe next time you'll listen." I remembered the taxi swerving. I remembered thinking, absurdly, that my mother would be angry I had not called. Now the plane door stood open ahead of me, and a flight attendant smiled. "Good morning." I swallowed hard. "Good morning." My seat was 18A. Window. The same seat Liana had taken in my first life after convincing staff I had changed plans. I slid my carry-on into the overhead bin myself, sat down, buckled my belt, and placed my passport wallet inside my hoodie again, even though we were already on the plane. Only then did I let myself breathe fully. Outside the window, the airport terminal stretched bright and indifferent. Somewhere across that maze, Liana was learning that a lie could run fast, but not faster than a boarding deadline. She called 14 times while the plane filled. 14. I counted because in my first life, I had called her 13 times and she had answered none. On the 14th, I declined and sent a text, "I'm boarded." She replied so quickly it appeared before I could lock my screen. "Get off." I stared at the two words, almost impressed by their arrogance. Not please. Not help.
Not I'm sorry.
Get off. As if the plane were a bus I could pause for her. As if my future were still a chair she could order me to vacate. I typed, "No, just 2 letters." They felt like a language I had never been allowed to learn. Her response came in pieces. "Mira, don't do this."
I'm begging.
"I'll explain later." I can't be stuck here alone. Kara left me. The staff won't help. They said gate closes 15 minutes before departure. "Mira, please." I watched the messages pile up, each one smaller than the theft she had planned. Then came the final one before the cabin crew told us to switch phones to airplane mode. "You ruined me." I looked at it for a long second, then whispered to the glass, "No, I stopped helping you ruin me." I turned on airplane mode. The plane lifted through a layer of cloud so bright it erased the city beneath us, and for the first hour, I did nothing but stare out the window with dry eyes. June sat across the aisle and kept glancing at me, probably wondering whether to ask questions. He wisely did not. My body still expected punishment. Every calm minute felt borrowed. I kept checking my bag with my foot, touching my pocket, replaying every step to make sure I had not missed a hidden knife. Trauma is not dramatic when it arrives early. It is practical, repetitive, obsessed with locks. When breakfast came, I could barely eat. The croissant flaked onto the tray. The coffee tasted like burnt paper. My phone, disconnected from the world, reflected my face in the dark screen. Same face as yesterday, same dark hair tied low, same small scar beside my chin from a childhood fall, but my eyes looked different. Not stronger in the movie way. Not fearless. Just awake. Death had not made me invincible. It made me attentive. I noticed the man in 18B tapping his wedding ring before sleeping. I noticed Kara 3 rows ahead whispering with another student, her shoulders hunched. I noticed June taking notes on his tablet like nothing had happened, except every so often he typed something, paused, and looked toward me. Maybe the story was already spreading through the cabin in quiet fragments. Let it. For once, the truth had boarded with me. Halfway through the flight, Kara came back to my row. Her eyes were red, but not from crying for Liana. Kara cried when consequences approached her personally. "Can I talk to you?" she whispered. I looked at the empty stretch near the galley and nodded. We stood beside the restroom doors while passengers slept under thin blankets. The engine hum filled the silence between us.
Kara twisted her bracelet.
Liana told me yesterday that you were unstable about the presentation. Did she? She said you might try to stop her from going, because Professor Han liked her version more. I almost laughed. Liana's version. What version?
Kara's hollowhead.
She showed me slides. The hum of the plane seemed to drop away. My slides. I didn't know. I thought you worked together. We didn't. Kara's face crumpled, but I held up one hand before she could perform guilt too loudly. What else did she say? Kara looked toward the rows, as if Liana might rise from under a seat. She said if anything happened at the airport, we should tell the committee she'd try to help you. She said you sometimes misplaced documents and accused people. There it was, the full frame. Misplaced documents. Accused people. Help. My first life had not been bad luck. It had been a script written before curtain. Why are you telling me now? I asked. Kara's eyes filled. Because she messaged me from Terminal 1 saying to tell everyone you lied, but we were standing under the board. And then June said he saw your post in the group chat before hers. And I realized. She stopped. You realized she was not as good at lying when I stopped helping, I said. Kara flinched, because it was true. I did not comfort her. That was another habit I buried at cruising altitude. I used to comfort people for feeling guilty about hurting me, which was just a softer form of carrying their luggage. Instead, I said, send me screenshots of what she told you.
Kara hesitated.
Mira, if you want to apologize, send the screenshots. Her mouth opened, closed, then she nodded. Back at her seat, she began sending them through the plane's paid Wi-Fi, slow image by slow image. By the time we landed in Vienna, my phone held a small archive of Liana's plan. Messages from the night before. Make sure you ask if Mira seems confused tomorrow. If she loses her boarding pass, don't make it a big thing. Just say she's stressed. Professor Han already prefers my delivery. Myra's data is strong, but she freezes. It's better if I present first. A cropped photo of my research slide with Liana's watermark pasted over it. A message about Terminal 1 sent at 4:12 a.m., long before she claimed to discover the change. I sat through landing with the phone in my lap and felt the wheels strike the runway like a judge's gavel. The arrival hall was glass, chrome, and echoing footsteps. Professor Han stood near the exchange committee with a navy coat folded over one arm, looking exactly as he always did, tired, composed, impossible to fool for long. Beside him were two coordinators from the Vienna Institute and a woman from the Scholarship Foundation whose name tag read Dr. Elise Martin. I stepped out with the others, and for one strange second, I expected Liana to appear beside me anyway, smiling, recovered, somehow ahead. She did not. Her absence created a silence louder than any accusation. Professor Han's eyes moved from my face to my suitcase, to the passport wallet still clutched in my hand. You made it, he said. Yes. I wanted to say more, but Dr. Martin stepped forward warmly. Mira, welcome. We were told there was some confusion with another participant. The word confusion floated there, polite and dangerous.
I looked at Professor Han.
He gave the smallest nod. Not permission to explode. Permission to be precise. There was false information circulated about my terminal, I said. I followed the official airline and airport instructions. I also have reason to believe my presentation materials were accessed without permission. Dr. Martin's smile disappeared. Do you have documentation? In my first life, that question had destroyed me because all I had was panic. This time, I opened my phone. Yes, I said.
Ida.
We did not discuss everything in the arrival hall. That would have been too messy, and Professor Han hated mess almost as much as he hated academic dishonesty. The committee transported us to the Institute residence, and I spent the ride watching Vienna slide past the window in clean winter colors, stone buildings, tram wires, bare trees, cyclists moving like they trusted the world to stay solid. My phone reconnected fully and exploded. Liana had moved from pleading to threats to wounded silence and back again. I missed boarding. They won't rebook without fee. My card declined. I'm at the desk. Mira, please answer. You don't understand what this does to me. I told them you had my documents. You need to confirm. That one made my stomach tighten. I clicked into the message. I told them you accidentally packed my folder, and that's why I went to you to find you. If they call, say yes. It's the only way they'll put me on next flight. She was still building lies mid-collapse, using my name as scaffolding. I screenshotted it and sent it to Professor Han without comment. He replied, "Do not respond." For once, obeying someone felt like protecting myself, not surrendering. The residence room I was assigned in Vienna was small, clean, and blissfully mine. One bed, one desk, one wardrobe. No second suitcase. No vanilla body spray. No roommate breathing lies into the corners. I locked the door behind me and stood in the center of the room until the silence settled over my shoulders. Then I opened my suitcase and checked everything again.
Clothes. Laptop. Charger.
Printed notes. USB. Backup USB. Notebook. The sealed recommendation letter. My fingers shook when I touched the seal. In my first life, Liana had opened it and scanned it, then somehow convinced the committee that Professor Han's praise referred to our joint work. The memory made my stomach turn. This time, the seal remained unbroken. I placed the letter in the desk drawer, then moved it to my backpack, because drawers could be opened. Then I moved it under my pillow, because fear is not always logical. Finally, I sat on the bed and let myself cry quietly for exactly 3 minutes. Not because Liana missed the flight. Not because I felt guilty. I cried for the version of me who had run through Terminal 1 calling a friend who never existed. I cried for the girl who died apologizing. Then I washed my face, opened my laptop, and prepared for the emergency integrity meeting scheduled for 5 p.m. The meeting took place in a glass-walled conference room on the Institute's 3rd floor, the kind of room designed to make every life feel visible. Professor Han sat to my left. Dr. Martin sat across from me, with a laptop open. 2 program coordinators joined remotely, and to my surprise, Liana appeared on the screen from what looked like an airport cafe, face pale, hair messy, eyes swollen. She had made herself look tragic in record time. A paper cup sat in front of her like a prop. When she saw me, her expression trembled. "Mira," she whispered, as if I were the one who had abandoned her in a burning building instead of a terminal with Wi-Fi and customer service. Dr. Martin began with formalities. "This meeting concerns travel disruption, conflicting statements regarding terminal information, and possible unauthorized access to academic materials. We will keep it factual." Factual. The words settled over the table like a blade. Liana nodded quickly. "Yes, factual. I just want to say, I never meant for any misunderstanding. Mira has been under a lot of pressure, and this morning she became very suspicious of me. I tried to help her. She refused to come with me. Then she told everyone to go Terminal 3, and I was left alone." She dabbed her eye with a napkin. Old Mira would have panicked at how convincing she sounded. New Mira looked at Dr. Martin's hands and waited for the first contradiction. Professor Han spoke before I did. "Why were you in Terminal 1? Liana blinked. "Because the flight changed." "What official source showed that?" "The airport app. Please share the screenshot." Her eyes flickered to the side. "I deleted it because I was stressed." "You deleted the only official evidence for a terminal change that caused you to miss an international academic exchange flight?" He did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Liana swallowed. "I didn't think. That is becoming clear," he said. Dr. Martin's mouth tightened, but she did not interrupt. Liana recovered quickly, turning her wet eyes toward the camera. "But Mira knew I was at Terminal 1. She could have waited. We were roommates. We were supposed to support each other." There it was, the emotional trap. Forget the lie. Punish the boundary. I took out my phone. "May I show the group chat?" Dr. Martin nodded. I forwarded the screenshot to her email. The timeline appeared on the conference screen. My message at Terminal 3, gate visible, airline app visible, group replies, Kara mentioning Liana's Terminal 1 claim. Then my text asking Liana to send a photo. Then her refusal. The room became very quiet. Liana's face changed by millimeters, from grief to calculation to something close to hate. "That doesn't prove anything," she said. "I was trying to help." "Then why did you have my spare itinerary?" I asked. The words landed harder, because they were the first ones I had directed at her in the meeting. Liana froze. Professor Han looked at me sharply, then at the screen. Dr. Martin leaned forward. "Please explain." I displayed the messages. Liana. "Mira, I have your spare itinerary by mistake." Me. "Why do you have my itinerary?" Liana. "It was on floor." Me. The floor in my suitcase? No reply. Dr. Martin read it once, then again. Liana, did you access Myra's luggage? No, Liana said too quickly. It must have fallen when we packed together. My itinerary was inside my passport wallet, I said. Behind my visa copy. Liana's eyes flashed. You can't prove that. The room shifted. Until then, she had been tragic. That sentence made her defensive. Defensive people reveal doors.
Dr. Martin typed something.
Professor Han removed his glasses and placed them on the table. Mira, continue.
So I did.
Not emotionally. Not with the rage she deserved. I presented evidence the way I presented research. Sequence, source, implication. The airline app showing Terminal 3. The airport board photo. The group chat timestamp. Liana's message telling me to come to Terminal 1 without photo evidence. Her voice message saying she needed the presentation slot. Kara's screenshots showing Liana had prepared claims about my supposed confusion before we even reached the airport. The image of my slide with Liana's watermark, sent by Kara. Each piece alone might have been explained away by a talented liar. Together, they formed a cage. Liana interrupted 4 times. The first time she cried. The second time, she accused Kara of editing screenshots. The third time, she said we had agreed to collaborate verbally. The fourth time, when Professor Han asked her to describe the methodology on her version of the slides, she stared into the camera and said her connection was unstable. It was not. We could hear the airport announcements clearly behind her. Dr. Martin said, "Your connection appears sufficient. Please answer." Liana looked down. For the first time in 6 months, silence told the truth for her. The cruelest part was not watching her fail. It was realizing how easy the truth had become once I stopped protecting her from it. For months, I had softened every suspicion before speaking it. I had said, maybe I misplaced it, when my notes vanished. I had said, maybe we think alike, when her essays mirrored mine. I had said, maybe she's overwhelmed, when she cried after being caught with my lab summary open on her laptop. I thought kindness meant giving someone the best possible interpretation. But some people use your best interpretation as a hiding place. In that meeting, with Liana trapped by timestamps, I finally understood that my generosity had been the blanket under which she sharpened the knife. Dr. Martin asked her one final question. Do you currently possess any copies of Myra's research materials? Liana lifted her chin, tears drying on her cheeks. No, Professor Han said. Then you will have no objection to submitting your presentation file for metadata review. Her face went white, not pale.
White.
Even through a laptop camera, everyone saw it. I don't have access right now, she said. My laptop battery is low. You are at an airport, Dr. Martin said. Find an outlet. Liana muted herself. We watched her shoulders shake. Whether from crying or fury, I could not tell. The meeting ended with provisional actions. Liana's presentation slot suspended pending review, her travel absence marked unexcused until investigated, her scholarship disbursement frozen, and my work placed under authorship protection. The language was professional, almost bloodless. It did not say thief. It did not say liar. It did not say she left me to die in another life no one remembered. But it was enough for that day. When the call ended, I expected relief to rush in. Instead, I felt hollow, like my body had set down a weight and did not know what to do with its empty hands. Professor Han walked me to the hallway. For a moment, we stood beside a window overlooking the courtyard, where students crossed between buildings with backpacks and paper cups, ordinary lives continuing in little streams. You handled that carefully, he said. I wanted to scream. Careful was more useful. I nodded, throat tight. Professor, if I hadn't had proof, would you have believed me? He did not answer immediately, which made me respect him more. I would have listened, he said. Belief without evidence is fragile. But I have observed enough patterns to know when a student is carrying another student's shadow. I looked at him. You noticed? I noticed your work getting quieter whenever hers got louder. That nearly broke me. In my first life, I had thought no one saw. Someone had. Just not soon enough. This time, soon enough would have to do. Liana arrived in Vienna the next afternoon on a brutally expensive replacement flight she paid for with money she did not have. By then, everyone knew enough to stop pretending they knew nothing. She walked into the residence lobby dragging her suitcase, sunglasses on despite the cloudy weather, and the conversations died one by one. It was not dramatic. No one booed. No one pointed. They simply looked, then looked away with the discomfort people feel when a mask falls, and they are embarrassed for ever admiring it. I was at a table near the window reviewing my slides with June when she entered. Her head turned toward me immediately, as if hatred had a magnetic field. For a second, I saw the old performance gather itself. Trembling lip, wounded eyes, maybe an apology staged for witnesses. Then she saw June's phone propped beside his laptop, camera possibly open, and thought better of it. Instead, she walked to the reception desk. The coordinator handed her a key card and said, loudly enough for the lobby to hear, "You are no longer assigned to share with Mira. Your room has been moved." Liana's hand tightened around the card. My coffee cooled untouched. In my first life, she had taken my seat on the plane. In this one, she did not even get the room beside mine. That evening, she knocked on my door anyway. I knew it was her before she spoke because the knock came in 3 soft taps, the same pattern she used when she wanted to borrow something without calling it borrowing. I stood on the other side and did not open it.
"Mira," she said.
Her voice was quiet, stripped of audience. "We need to talk." "No," I thought. "You need access." "Talk through the door," I said. Silence. Then a small laugh, bitter and low. "So this is who you are now?" I almost smiled. People who benefit from your weakness always call your boundaries a personality change. "Yes," I said. "This is who I am now." She exhaled sharply. "You think you won because I missed one flight?" "No." "You think Professor Han will protect you forever?" "No." "You think everyone believes you?" "They don't. They're just scared because you made me look bad." I leaned my forehead lightly against the door. The wood was cool. In another life, I had died, wanting this conversation. I had wanted her to admit it, to explain why, to give my pain a shape. Now her voice only tired me. "Liana," I said, "why did you tell Kara I might lose my boarding pass before I lost anything?" Silence. "Why did you watermark my slide?" More silence. "Why did you need my presentation slot?" The silence changed, became heavier. Then she whispered, "Because you don't know what it's like to need one chance." My fingers curled against the door. There it was. Not apology. Just motive wearing self-pity. I opened the door, but only as far as the security chain allowed. She stood in the hallway with her sunglasses pushed into her hair, eyes raw, cardigan wrinkled from travel. Without the careful lighting of her videos, she looked younger and meaner. "You had chances," I said. "You had your own application, your own topic, your own interview." Her mouth twisted. "Easy for you to say. Professors like girls like you." "Girls who do the work?" Her eyes sharpened. "Girls who act humble while making everyone else look stupid." I laughed once, not because it was funny, but because the accusation was so perfectly reversed. "I made myself smaller for you, for 6 months. "No, you made me feel small," she snapped. "Every time you got praised. Every time someone asked you for notes. Every time you pretended not to know you were better." There it was, the rotten root. Liana had not stolen because she lacked opportunity. She stole because my existence offended her. My effort felt like an insult. My success, even when quiet, sounded to her like mockery. In my first life, I wasted my last hours wondering what I had done wrong. Now the answer stood in the hallway. Nothing. I had simply been near someone who believed admiration was a limited resource and decided to loot me for it. "Thank you," I said. She blinked. "For what?" "For finally saying it clearly." Her face changed as she realized I was holding my phone by my side, recording. She stepped back. "You're insane."
"No."
"I'm done being undocumented." She reached toward the gap in the door, and I shut it before her fingers touched the chain. She hit the wood once with her palm. "Mira, I send the audio to Professor Han and Dr. Martin before my hands stop shaking." Then I slid down against the door and sat on the floor, breathing through the aftershock. Revenge in stories feels hot, but real self-defense is often cold and exhausting. It asks you to become meticulous when you want to collapse. It asks you to press record, save files, forward evidence, lock doors. It asks you to disappoint every part of yourself that still wants the villain to become human for 1 minute and say sorry. Liana never did. That was not my failure. The next morning, the institute held rehearsal presentations. Mine was scheduled for 10:30 in room B. Liana's slot, once immediately after mine, had been removed from the schedule and replaced with review pending. The printed sheet taped outside the lecture hall looked ordinary, but students gathered around it like it was a crime scene. Liana stood at the back of the corridor in a black turtleneck, arms crossed, expression carefully blank. I felt her stare between my shoulder blades as I connected my laptop to the projector. In my first life, she had stood where I stood now, opening with my introduction, stumbling only when the committee asked about one dataset she did not understand. Later, she told everyone she had been nervous because I abandoned her. Today, I advanced to the title slide and saw my name alone beneath the research title. Not hers. Not joint work.
Mine.
My chest tightened, so suddenly I had to grip the podium. Professor Hans sat in the front row. Dr. Martin sat beside him. June gave me an exaggerated thumbs up from the second row, and even Kara, pale and guilty, watched with her hands folded. I began. Good morning. My presentation examines diagnostic delay patterns in student health clinics using anonymized appointment data and qualitative intake themes. My voice did not shake. Or maybe it did, and I kept speaking anyway. Sometimes that is the same thing. At slide 7, the projector flickered. For half a second, the screen went black. My heart slammed so hard I nearly lost my place. Behind me, someone inhaled sharply. I turned. The cable had loosened where it connected to the table adapter. Nothing sinister. Nothing stolen. Just a cable. June stood to fix it, but I lifted a hand. I've got it. The room waited as I reconnected the adapter and reopened the slide. A small interruption. A harmless one. Yet in that tiny black screen, my body relived every crash, every missing document, every locked gate. I took a breath, looked at the audience, and said, let me repeat the key finding before the interruption, because this part matters. A few people smiled. The rhythm returned. Pattern disruption, recovery control. Liana had taught me the first two through harm. I taught myself the third. By the time I finished, the questions came fast and sharp, but they were about methodology, not ownership. I answered them. I knew the data, because I had cleaned it myself, at 2 a.m. I knew the limitations because I had written them honestly instead of hiding them. I knew the conclusion because it belonged to me. When the room applauded, I did not look at Liana. I looked at the title slide with my name and let the sound reach me. After rehearsal, Dr. Martin asked me to remain behind. Professor Hans stayed too. I thought there would be another evidence review, another exhausting retelling, but Dr. Martin surprised me by placing a folder on the table. Your authorship protection has been approved for the symposium materials, she said. Your slides will be watermarked by the Institute, and your abstract has been locked under your submission ID. No changes without your written consent. I touched the folder carefully. Thank you. She nodded. Also, we reviewed preliminary metadata from the file Liana submitted last night. My stomach tightened. Professor Han's expression revealed nothing. Her presentation file was created from a copy of yours, Dr. Martin said. The original author field, edit history fragments, and embedded chart references point to your laptop username. She attempted to remove visible identifiers, but not successfully. For a moment, I heard nothing but the blood in my ears. Evidence. Not suspicion. Not intuition. Evidence. What happens now? I asked. Formal academic misconduct proceedings, Professor Han said. Her scholarship remains suspended. She may be removed from the exchange depending on the panel. I expected triumph. Instead, I felt a quiet door close. Liana had not just missed a boarding call. She had missed the moment when turning back might have saved her. Of course, she did not accept it. People like Liana rarely fall once. They tumble, grabbing curtains, tablecloths, other people's sleeves, anything that might make the collapse look shared. That night, an anonymous post appeared in the private student forum. Interesting how some people weaponize tears and fake evidence to eliminate competition. Not everyone who makes a mistake deserves public humiliation. It did not name me, which made it cowardly, but everyone knew. In my first life, a post like that would have sent me spiraling. I would have written paragraphs defending myself, making myself smaller with every explanation. This time, I did nothing for 11 minutes.
I ate dinner.
I washed my bowl. I waited for the old panic to pass, through without obeying it. Then June commented, "Was the mistake stealing a file or going to the wrong terminal after lying about it?" Someone else added, "Because those feel like two mistakes." Kara, perhaps trying to buy back her reflection, posted a screenshot of Liana's message about preparing the confused story. The forum exploded. Not with cruelty, exactly, but with the electric shock of a group realizing the villain had been narrating them too. Liana deleted the post within 10 minutes. Screenshots remained. They always do. That was the modern moral of the story. If you build a trap with messages, do not be surprised when the walls are made of glass. The formal panel happened 3 days later. Liana wore white. I noticed because she always wore white when she wanted authority figures to imagine innocence before evidence. We sat at opposite ends of a long table with 3 panel members between us and a recorder in the corner. I was allowed a support person, so Professor Han sat behind me, silent but present. Liana brought no one. Not because she had no supporters, but because supporters are expensive when they realize payment comes in reputation. The panel asked me to describe the timeline.
I did.
The panel asked Liana to respond. She said she had been confused by airport signage. They showed the official records. No terminal change, no staff advisory, no gate conflict. She said she picked up my itinerary by accident. They asked how a paper inside my passport wallet moved to the floor, without my passport wallet. She said we packed together. I said we had not packed documents together. They asked about my presentation file metadata. She said we collaborated. They asked for messages showing collaboration. She had none. They asked why her watermark appeared over my slide before the trip. She said she was testing formatting. They asked why her voice message said she needed the presentation slot. She cried. The panel paused for tissues. I watched her cry and felt the last thread of pity inside me loosen, not because tears were fake, but because tears did not make harm disappear. A person can cry sincerely for the consequences of a theft they sincerely committed. Then came the moment I did not expect. One panel member, an older woman with silver hair and kind eyes that missed nothing, asked Liana, "Why did you not simply present your own work?" Liana stared at her hands. The room waited. I thought she would lie again. Instead, perhaps tired, perhaps cornered, perhaps unable to invent one more graceful escape, she whispered, "Because hers was better." The words barely reached the recorder, but they reached me. Her shoulders folded inward. Hers was always better. No apology followed. No confession of the terminal plot. No acknowledgement of what she had taken. Just that, the miserable envy at the center of everything. The older panelists looked at her for a long moment. Then the appropriate response was to improve yours, she said. Not steal hers. It was so simple that it felt almost cruel. Liana covered her face. I looked down at my own hands and realized they were steady. The decision came the next day. Liana was removed from the exchange, her scholarship revoked pending home institution review, and her misconduct file forwarded to the Academic Integrity Office. Because she had missed the original flight due to her own actions and could not participate in the protected symposium materials, her replacement ticket would not be reimbursed. The official letter used careful language: unauthorized access, misrepresentation, attempted academic appropriation, disruptive conduct. It did not mention rebirth. It did not mention the crash in my other memory or the blood on my sleeve. Justice in this life could only punish what this life could prove. I had to accept that. Still, when I read the letter in my room, I felt something in my chest unclench for the first time since I woke under that wobbling hostel fan. She had missed the boarding call alone, yes. But more than that, she had missed the chance to drag me with her. That was the victory. Not her punishment. My separation. She came to my presentation anyway. I do not know how she got into the public session. Maybe the institute had not removed her access badge yet, or maybe she slipped in behind another group. I saw her standing along the back wall just as Dr. Martin introduced me for the official symposium. For a second, my vision narrowed. The hall was larger than the rehearsal room, with rows of visiting students, faculty, and foundation donors. The screen behind me showed the institute watermark over my title slide. My name looked small but undeniable. Liana's face in the back looked strangely empty. Not angry now. Not crying. Just watching. Old fear rose inside me, whispering that she could still ruin this, still shout, still accuse, still become the center. Then I remembered gate C27. I remembered the green beep. I remembered my own voice saying no. I turned to the audience and began. The first sentence carried. The second landed. By the third, I was not thinking of her. By slide 5, the room belonged to the work. By slide 10, a visiting clinician nodded at my data table. By the conclusion, I could feel the audience leaning in, not because I was dramatic, because the research mattered, because I had made it matter. When the applause came, it did not feel like revenge. It felt like oxygen. During the reception afterward, people asked questions about the project, about future applications, about whether I planned to expand the dataset. I answered with a steadiness that still surprised me. June hovered near the snack table eating tiny sandwiches like he had personally suffered for science. Kara approached once, offered an apology that was clumsy but direct, and I accepted it without offering friendship as a reward. That was new too. Forgiveness, I realized, did not have to include access. Across the room, Liana stood alone near the doors, holding a paper cup she did not drink from. A few students glanced at her, then away. She had become what she feared most, visible and irrelevant at the same time. Eventually, she walked toward me. June straightened, but I shook my head slightly. Let her come. Not because she deserved my attention, but because I wanted to see whether the last scene had anything left to teach me. She stopped an arm's length away. "Congratulations," she said. The word sounded like it had thorns. "Thank you." Her eyes moved over my face, searching for weakness, guilt, triumph, anything she could use. "Do you feel good now?" she asked. I thought about it. Did I feel good? Not exactly. I felt alive. I felt tired. I felt protected by my own choices. "I feel present," I said. She looked confused, which made sense. Liana understood winning and losing, praise and humiliation, possession and theft. Presence was outside her vocabulary. "You know," she said softly, "you could have just helped me. We both could have succeeded." I almost laughed. "You didn't want help. You wanted my place." Her jaw tightened. Maybe you should ask yourself why it was so easy for everyone to believe I could take it. There it was, the final little blade. The attempt to turn her exposure into my shame. In my first life, that sentence would have haunted me. This time, it passed through and found nothing to hold. "They believed it," I said, "because you practiced on them too." She flinched. I stepped closer, lowering my voice so only she could hear. "And because I used to cover for you. That part is mine. I won't do it again." Her eyes shone, but she refused to cry in front of me now. "You changed," she said. "Yes. I liked you better before." "I know," I said. "Before, I was useful." She left Vienna 2 days later. Not with a dramatic escort, not with a public meltdown, but in the dull gray manner of consequences that have finished making announcements. I saw her from the residence lobby window as she loaded her suitcase into a taxi. No one stood beside her. No one filmed. No one waved. She looked smaller than I remembered, though perhaps she had always been small and I had mistaken proximity for size. As the taxi pulled away, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number appeared. "You think this is over?" I stared at it, And for one heartbeat, the old fear tried to rise. Then a second message came from Professor Han. Please send any further contact attempts directly to the panel. Do not engage. I screenshotted the unknown message, forwarded it, blocked the number, and put my phone away. That was all.
No spiral.
No reply.
No speech.
Healing sometimes is not a sunrise. Sometimes it is blocking a number without shaking. When the exchange ended 3 weeks later, I flew home through the same airport where everything had split open. Terminal 3 again. Gate C27 again, because fate apparently had a taste for symmetry. I arrived early, alone by choice, and stood beneath the departure board watching flights blink across the screen. People rushed around me in every direction, families arguing over bags, students checking passports, business travelers walking like arrows. The airport no longer looked like a maze. It looked like a place where signs were posted for anyone willing to read them. I bought coffee from the same chain, sat near the window, and opened my notebook. On the first page, I wrote a list not of what Liana did, but of what I had learned. Keep original documents on your body, confirm with official sources, send timestamps early, do not confuse calm with consent, never let someone who benefits from your panic become your guide. Then I added one final line. When the boarding call comes, board. It sounded too simple, but that was the truth I had died to learn. At 10:05, the announcement echoed overhead. Passengers traveling on Zenith Air Flight ZX419, please proceed to Gate C27. Boarding has now commenced. My chest tightened, but this time it was not fear. It was memory passing through a door I was holding open. I joined the line. No one pulled my wrist. No one told me the terminal had changed. No one held my itinerary hostage. When the gate agent scanned my pass and the machine beeped green, I smiled so widely she smiled back without knowing why. On the jet bridge, sunlight poured through the narrow windows, bright on the floor, bright on my hands, bright on the passport wallet I carried like a promise. I thought of Liana in Terminal 1, alone with her lies, missing the call she meant for me to miss. I thought of the girl I had been, running until her lungs burned for a future someone else had already boarded. And then I thought of the woman I was becoming, walking at a steady pace toward the seat with my name on it. This time I did not run. I did not beg. I did not look back. I boarded.